Welcome to Nacho Fitness Coach,
where we're all about keeping it real in the world of fitness.
I'm Sara, your go-to fitness professional, cutting through the BS to bring you the truth.
And I'm Caleigh, your fitness newbie, here to ask the questions you're too afraid to ask.
From crunches to kale, we've got the inside scoop on what works and what doesn't,
because fitness should be fun.
So Caleigh, what do you like to listen to when you work out?
I don't know, sometimes a podcast and sometimes music.
Hey, wait. This is a podcast. What if you could have both?
At the same time?
Oh, yeah. Podbeat is a free mobile app that lets you add any beat style to any podcast for your workout. It's easy to do and free to download in the App Store. Caleigh, you sound pretty cool with the trap beat, but Sara, the funk beat works for your voice.
So if you want to make our podcast work for a workout, check it out in the App Store.
They even have Podbeat for Android users in the Google Play Store. Okay, on to the show.
So Caleigh.
Yeah.
Mandy is back today, and I'm so excited.
Me too.
Yes, I know. I can tell. I'm like, this is going to be a great one.
No, I'm here.
We have Mandy Froehlich back, and you maybe remember her from the episode where we talked a lot about yoga, Pilates. She's a studio owner. She's got a master's in health sciences. I mean, she's been in the industry for a very long time. Her and I go way back and have a lot of stories that we could probably share, but we shouldn't. So we'll keep.
But we won't.
We won't.
I want to hear about your partying days. You guys were touched a little bit about that off air.
We did, yeah. When
you talked about that, you had the jello shot finger. I didn't know you knew about the jello shot finger.
I do. Well, so Mandy and I were both lifeguards in the summer, and that's really, I think, where our paths initially
You guys
crossed.
just took a lot of jello shots while you were lifeguarding.
Well, what would happen, not when we were lifeguarding.
It's my style.
But what would happen was if it was a cold day where the weather was not, the pool didn't open, or if there was a storm, then we would have guard parties, some during the day, but then we would definitely have after the pool closed at night. Like my house was the guard party house.
I have a question.
And then eventually Mandy did move in and she was a roommate in the house for a year. But yeah. Oh no, what's your question?
Did you drink alcohol before you turned 21?
I actually did, but not till I went to college.
Okay.
I didn't have anything until...
I was asking for a friend.
I was honestly I loved my sports, and I loved that. And for me, that was really the only reason why I didn't even try to get caught doing some things, because I didn't want to be ineligible to compete.
I was going to say I can relate, but I can't. I didn't drink a lot, honestly, in high school. I don't know where we're going with this, but I didn't drink a lot in high school either, to be honest with you. I know you probably don't believe me. But
I don't believe you, actually.
I didn't. I dabbled a little bit, but...
That wasn't your thing.
Well, I wasn't a big drinker in high school, no.
I mean...
I had a strict dad, so...
Oh, I didn't. But then once I got to Maryville, I was Northwest Missouri State.
All hell broke loose. Anyway, I was just curious about that.
It was a good town. There was a lot of fun. It was a good 4 years.
That's great. I love that.
But honestly, though, the summers were the best.
Yeah.
I had so much fun in the summers. I mean, and it was crazy because we were all so different. We were all different ages. We were all different. There was a good mix of high school local kids, and there was the college kids, and we had a wide range of ages, a wide range of personalities. We would be at the pool all day together working, but then we would still choose to spend time together at nights and our off days. I mean, it was a great few summers for me.
Yeah, we had breaks, so it was kind of like, you're working in a pool. There was a good amount of playtime.
Yes, right.
When you had a break, not when you were on the guard stand, but when I'm going to hop in, I'm going to swim, I'm going to, so it felt pretty casual.
I do feel like that was the definition, though, for me of a work hard, play hard, because we were really serious when we were actually on stand.
Yeah. We had
You're saving lives. I would hope so.
Yes. I mean, it was not, we didn't mess around.
Always you might get audited. You never know.
Yes.
They were always undercover. You never know. You never knew if they would show up,
I wish our local pool had our lifeguards certified by Ellis and Associates, because that was just next level. I mean, Red Cross is great, which is what I think a lot of pools are, but man, that certification and just knowing that you were going to get checked anytime, and they would sneak into the pool without it being open, and they would put like dummies down in the pool just to make sure you were doing like your opening scans and things like that.
And
like
you would get videotaped.
Yeah.
Like, they would videotape you incognito on this. So then they can go back and be like, you weren't even looking at the water.
Yeah. You weren't scanning.
Wow, you were talking to so-and-so, and then there could be a baby, not a real baby, but, a dummy baby planted somewhere, and you got to go in and get it and do the whole 9 yards.
No, I don't
Yeah,
like.
so
I
it
want no
was
part of any of
definitely-
that. No, thank
It was not for just.
So you couldn't be drunk.
It wasn't. I mean, that was serious. No, we could not be drunk. I mean, maybe hungover a little bit, but
Over, baby.
This is stressing me out just talking about
I
it.
remember there was one time that because it was a small water park. I mean, so there was like big water slides and stuff, and like a zero entry kind of side. And like, I remember there was one time where they planted the dummy like underneath where the water slide comes out, and so it's really hard to see kind of because the water is like whooshing out of the bottom of the slide. Like they
plant
intentionally
dummies down there.
Yeah, to make sure that like once you open, like there was this whole protocol about how once you took your station, you had to do like an initial scan of the bottom, and you had to have a pattern. And so anyways, that was the one that I remember, and I can't remember if that was one that I had to find, or maybe since it stuck with me so much, maybe that was one of mine.
That would stick with. That's going to stick with. Just this conversation is going to stick with me. I hate everything about it.
I loved those summers. It's a good job. I like that job.
It sounds like too much pressure.
We spent lots of time with that group of people, lots of good times. But yes, we did have then one friend that would make jello shots, and they were always red. I don't know why, if it was the flavor or what, but so then to get it off the edge of the cup, we would all be using our index finger.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I'm well aware of how you release a jello shot from a cup. Thank you.
So, just like halfway through the night, we would realize
I happen to be.
You're on
you
that
can
one.
use your tongue as well. I don't know if
I couldn't, because I'm still, I think, half tongue. What's that, Caleigh? No,
I'm just saying. You can
we are not on topic at all.
No, what's this
Which
episode
totally
about?
went down a rabbit hole. I don't know.
All I want to know is if you drank before you turned 21, and were you drunk when you were lifeguarding? That's all.
No, well, I did drink before I was 21,
Not while you were lifeguarding.
but now I was lifeguarding ever.
Good. I'm glad we cleared that up because
Yeah.
these are the questions that people have.
Yeah, so now we know. And our house in college had what was called a party potty.
A party potty?
Yeah, off the kitchen was the steps to the basement, like the scary basement of like a really old house. And someone at some point thought it was a good idea to install a toilet on that landing.
Okay. All I want to know is why did you call it a party potty?
Because it's where, when we had parties, that's
People
where you
threw
go
up
to the
in
bathroom.
there?
No, well, probably.
It's the only bathroom on the main level.
It was the only bathroom on the main floor. And so, but it was like, you also couldn't fall because then you would like go down the steps into the gross basement. Like, it was not a good.
It's very weird and scary. If you drank too much and you're going to, it's like, I think I saw something move, at the bottom of the stairs.
Oh my God.
Dark.
It was
Very weird.
It's weird, but it did come in handy because it was the only bathroom then on the main floor. And so people didn't have to worry about going upstairs into like our regular bathroom. Like we just used that one
Just
when
use
we
the
had
party
people.
potty.
Yeah. And that's how it got its name,
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
which is super fun.
I love it.
But it's now since been removed and it's an Airbnb. And
That's too bad. That's actually really unfortunate. I think the
Been really nicely
gentrification
updated.
for these college houses is a damn shame.
Yes, I would agree. So the reason why I thought Mandy would be a really great person to have on again was because a while ago, which is probably 6 months or so ago by now, or was it in the off season, or was it during the season? She shared a picture that she'd been doing some work with the local high school football team. With
Yeah. So I started working with them in their preseason. So in the summer, in July, before, I think the first game was the end of August. So it was the beginning of July. The coach brought me on because honestly, all the colleges are doing mobility. Like they won state. So this is a team that won Missouri State, and they had just a lineup of incredible athletes, a lot of Division I guys. And I think one guy was like the top recruit in the nation. So really, really, really good. But what feedback he would get from these Division I coaches is these guys are great, but they're super stiff. Like they're not moving well. And so he brought me on to help them fill in the gaps. And it was fascinating because there's 100 guys. So I worked with the whole team in the summer. And then in the season, he wanted me to come every week on Monday after the Friday game and just stretch them out, help them recover. And it was interesting because, you know, in the middle of the season, and then I talked to him after the season, but I'm like, do you think it's helping? You know, I talked to the trainer. So actually my graduate program, one of the guys, did you know Jeff Snow?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just the name. I don't know that I would know him personally or pick him out in a crowd, but I remember that name. Yeah.
Okay. He did the athletic training program at Northwest. And so he is there and he was like, oh my gosh, their muscles are so much easier to move. Like they're just not so rigid. And what was fascinating to me was I worked with that high school and then I worked with, my son goes to the other high school. So there's 2 high schools in Liberty. And so I worked with that team as well a little bit. And they're all weak in certain areas, similar areas. And then obviously the mobility piece. And then I have this very sick enthusiasm for making them like go into like these poses that are really hard and watch them suffer. And I'm like, this is amazing.
These high school aged boys, and you're putting them in their place a little bit.
I love it. You know, they're dying. And I'm like, this is what I think I was called to do. Yeah, this is it.
Wow.
This does it for me.
Oh my gosh, I think I would love that.
You would.
Literally, I mean, when I talk about like standing on one leg, I'm like, you just squatted 500 pounds and you can't stand on your left leg and bring your right knee to your chest and just hold it for more than 2 seconds. This is a problem. It's a problem because, and that's why, you know, we're getting injuries and different things like that. But the outcome of that whole thing, they won state. That wasn't me, but I'd like to say, but help. Is the coach said they didn't have a player miss a game.
Injuries
from
were
an injury.
That's amazing.
So he said that was the biggest thing is my players were not out injury. So decrease of risk, you know, I think risk of injury because they're able to move. I mean, that Patrick Mahomes, like he's doing this, you know, back bend and they're showing how he trains. Like you have to be bendy. Like, and I think that as we evolve, like when I started studying fitness in the early 2000s, it has evolved. We know more. We know more about the body. It can't just be strong. It also has to be able to move well. And I actually somebody just said this and it was kind of brilliant. It was actually a yoga teacher and she said that when she first started doing yoga, she really realized that she was just more stable. Like she just was not flexible, but she just had more stability. And a lot of those players just are made up of more stability. They're just stronger, they're dense. That's why they're doing what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't incorporate the flexibility, the mobility piece. You know, so the big question is, well, what's flexibility? What's mobility? And I would say you can look up the definition, but mobility in my mind is really controlling the movement through a range of motion. Flexibility, anybody can do. Flexibility, the definition is like bending until you break or bending to the point of not breaking. So you can be flexible, but you could break. And I see that, you know, when I teach yoga, you have people who are just so bendy and they're like, wow, I'm so good at this, you know, and I'm like, you're going to be in some pain. You might not be in pain now, but you've got to add some stability to what you're doing. So we know now that there's different types of, you know, different ways that you can stretch. And one of my favorite is called facilitated stretching, which maybe you guys have heard of. And it's just engaging the muscle through the range of motion. So, you know, if you're in a forward fold, squeeze your thighs, squeeze the front of your thighs. The back of the thighs will lengthen. It's, you know, exercise physiology, like that's how our bodies work. And so really being able to control the movement, not just passively moving through air, flippantly.
I do feel like a lot of young athletes right now have been allowed by coaches, parents, to just go through the motions and not be mindful of what they're doing just in general. They're just going through the motions and just like sports specific stuff or just playing. And I'm like, they're not paying attention at all to what they should be doing. And they definitely are not. They're getting allowed with poor movement or being allowed to have just poor movement. Like an epidemic that I've seen here through our sports teams is like through dynamic stretching, doing like lunges, for example. They'll do like a half lunge and then they'll take like 4 walking steps and then they'll do another lunge and then they'll take more walking steps. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why? I mean, they're kids. They don't know any different and they have been allowed by the adults in their lives to just do that. But I'm like, you're not even being mindful of what you should be doing, how you should be moving, and you're not moving correctly. But
well, and the other thing is, when we look at training, the term progressive overload, it's so easy to define progressive overload as I'm just going to add more weight, I'm just going to add more volume, I'm going to add more reps. Well, we forget that progressive overload is also controlling the movement. So that kid is taking a lunge and controlling it, and instead of take step, another lunge, they're controlling each one. It's harder. That's why their body's doing it, because the body goes to the path of least resistance. When our brain is not online and connected to our body, we're going to do the easy path every single time. When I was training, it was just, I knew immediately what people were going to do. Our bodies are pretty similar. If I give you an exercise or a movement, 9 times out of 10, if that person is, those 9 people or 10 people are weak, they're going to do the same compensation, really similar. So it's easy to see that, because it's like they're offline and now their knees are, at risk, or their hips are at risk, because when your muscles are offline, you're putting a lot of risk to your joints. So like squats or, bending your, I love when people say, yeah, my doctor told me I can't squat. Well, how do you pee? I mean,
right.
Really?
How do you pick up something off the floor? You're squatting.
We need to learn movement patterns. It's not this like black and white. It's like actually learn how to engage your muscles, because your muscle's probably offline. And so when we think about mobility, it's like, we're talking about muscles? Like, absolutely. We have to have muscle activation when we're working mobility. Otherwise, we're probably going to get hurt.
So did you have the whole football team then like lined up and it was just like one big group class?
So they split it into 2. Because there was 2. So sometimes we would, when there was 100 people, we did 2 groups. And so I would just take them through, like it was 20 minutes. It wasn't even a long time. He was just like 20, 25 minutes per group. And he kind of split it up in the starter, seniors, varsity mostly, and some JV, and then the freshmen and sophomores. So there were 2 separate groups. The fascinating part, I had 2 guys that were really, really good baseball players, and they were so dang flexible. They were always in the front row. And they would always talk to me because they were working on it. With baseball, they had to work on it. Like, and these are kids who are like heavily recruited for high, big schools. They were very good, but it was so impressive to me because like one of them was like, yeah, this is the app I use this because I stretch every day. Yeah. So, and that's the other piece to it. So I own this yoga studio, and last fall I actually had a Chiefs player who came and did some yoga, and he was like, he was super flexible, huge guy. And, he was so dang flexible. And I was like, I am so impressed. And he was like, well, I didn't stretch until I made the NFL. And then when I made the NFL, I told myself I need to work on this. And you absolutely do. It's next level, So one great tip, my boys, so I have a junior in high school, and then I have one who's in 7th grade. And my junior does mobility all the time. He comes to 2 of my yoga classes a week. And then I have an online mobility program that they both do because it's easy. It's 10 minutes. And it's crazy how much, more flexibility they're getting just from a little bit of movement. It's not like you have to do a ton of dedication. You know, it's just kind of like that thing of like, oh yeah, I'll stretch. So it's not really a priority. You know, it's just making it a little bit of a priority. And I think it's crazy the kind of the outcomes you get from that, just from a little bit. So,
well, and it's making you just a better athlete in general, or just a better human being, that you're moving well for like longer term, and you're establishing some habits that are going to pay off for you down the road. Like that was, I don't know if it's mobility or if it was just like the way he was working out, but during the playoffs when Jason Kelce jumped out of this box at the Buffalo Bills game. I mean, he is a big dude. He is big, and he obviously has been a professional athlete, but I mean, he just hopped back up. Like he was able to get his knees up to his chest and jump high enough to jump back into that video. I had to watch it a bunch of times because I'm like, I don't think people understand how impressive that was, how big he is and how mobile he was enough.
He was just having silly goose fun.
He is silly goose fun, but I'm like, you guys, not only could he jump that high and move his body that much, but he actually was able to get his feet up that high.
It didn't even dawn. That didn't even
to get back up. It probably didn't.
I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that video clip is great, but that shows you how powerful it can be to just be able to move well.
Yeah, this is why I'm friends with you. You can point these things out.
That's not what you learned from that.
No,
video.
it's just like he's partying.
He's a party guy.
He's rooting for his brother. Like, no, never. And I was never like, wow, look at what he.
That's the only thing that I thought of when I saw that video.
Wow,
like that's impressive.
So different.
We are very different. But I do think that was a really interesting, like, now, okay, between your two boys, because there's a significant developmental age gap between the two of them, right? But you did say you noticed some similarities though between the 7th grade and them working with like the high schoolers. Were there some things that were similar, or were they very drastically different just based on their ages?
I think that, you know, 7th graders, 6th graders, you know, that age range, even 8th grade, they're still really trying to figure out their body. And my 7th grader is 6 feet tall, and he is still growing, and he's just tall, and he genetically has kind of my husband's build where, you know, my husband would say he wasn't, you know, they don't do sit and reach anymore, do they? I don't know. He couldn't touch the board. You know, that was
right.
Like,
yeah.
ha, 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 I couldn't even touch the board. Mm-hmm. So inflexible, same thing. And both boys were that way. My junior's really taken it, and like, I mean, he's like, you know, at the end, light is at the end of the tunnel, and he's really embraced it. And my 7th grader's a little bit more at the beginning of the journey. But yes, to answer your question, there's similarities in the fact that, you know, their cores are, well, a lot of kids are spending a lot of time like hunched over. They call it tech neck, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's just a lot of that happening. So their posture, their core is just pretty offline. And so teaching them how to turn it on, you know, that was definitely a big thread of like, and the hip flexors, the psoas.
From sitting?
So tight, so weak.
From sitting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought it was fascinating. My kids could do, if you look at toddlers, they can do it's called a yogi squat, but, you know, really squat down.
Oh, yeah.
They lost it after kindergarten. They couldn't do it after kindergarten. Not, you know, well, my daughter probably could. I don't know.
Because of how much they're sitting in a chair?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Like, just the hip mobility, it goes so fast. If we don't think about it, you know.
Yeah.
So it's important to think about. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Because we all have super sedentary lifestyles. We are all hunched over, like our shoulders are rolling forward because of our computers, our phones, and all the things. So it's just like opening up like this last season, working with the middle school track team, like I completely revamped their like warm up because they were still doing traditional static stretching and everything at the very beginning. And so we started, you know, switched it up and moved everything to dynamic and then did like our traditional track warm up. But you talk about balance and the goal for those boys to even just stand on one leg and get their knee up to their chest for 2 seconds. I incorporated that into our static stretching. The amount of thud that happens from their shoes because it's like they just let go because they can't do it anymore. I'm like, you guys control the movement all the way down. You know, every day I felt like I was a broken record because it's like, pay attention to what your body's doing, how you're moving.
Yeah.
You shouldn't hear your shoes thudding down, but they were doing it because I don't think they could have held it for much longer, you know?
Yeah. And the stability piece is gone. What's fascinating is when I started this high school, you know, in July, beginning of July, they're all over the place. By the end, and they went to state, so I think we worked through, what would that have been? November? I think it was through November. The last session, I just walked around and I'm like, you guys, they're all touching their toes. They're all standing on one leg. Their body adapted so quickly when you really think about it. And I'm just complimenting them. And not only that, the coach was like, they're stretching all the time now. Because once you start moving that way, you realize how good it feels. I mean, I view it as an unwinding. You know, if we're saying we're hunched over and we've got the tech neck and we're like here, well, the opposite, it's so good. You know, once you get past the feeling of like, I always call it like ungunking, like, okay, my shoulders feel gunky, my upper back feels gunky. Like once I kind of smooth that out a little, it feels good. And then it's also a little addicting because you're noticing progress.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So that was 5 months of what was your frequency with them?
We started in the summer, July and August, twice a week. And then it went down to once a week as like a recovery after a game, just to help them with their recovery. Their coach really focused on the recovery piece because they had the like balls to the wall training, you know, they were really pushing them. So they really wanted to balance that out with like, how can we help replenish them? And so I would work, and it was only 20, 30 minutes of just, you know, mobility. We hit all the areas of the hip. Oftentimes I would go in after a game and I'm like, how are you guys feeling today? You know, and a lot of the times they would say my back hurts, you know, and it's probably, you know, just from the, I mean, I think it's their hips. If their back's kind of sore, we did a lot of hip opening, a lot of hip mobility. And what was great too was at the end, I made them just lay there with their eyes closed, you know, in yoga, it's like a Shavasana. They loved it. Loved it. I mean, a few of them at first, it was like, wait, what? I'm laying here, you know? And then by the end, they're like, can we turn off the lights? Lay here.
Yeah,
they loved it because they weren't ever getting a break like that. You know, they're just going. And when they're playing back, you know, but when you do a high school sport, it's a very long day.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been at school all day and then you've got practice afterwards. And then probably a lot of them still have homework at night. And then it's just like they repeat once they start going. So, I mean, that's really only then about 30 sessions over 5 months. And then you were able to see that kind of shift. And then, and too, for the coach to feel like that, I mean, for the coach to notice the injuries, I think is huge. I mean, I don't ever want to see a youth athlete getting injured with things like that because they are just way too young. And so it's like the things that we can do to help them move well, to get to compete and have fun and all the life lessons that come with athletics, then I don't know. I think it's pretty cool what you did. And I'm totally going to be picking your brain about this more. And I'm excited that you have the mobility program out. So tell us how we can find more about your mobility program.
So it's mandy-froehlich.com, which my last name is like hard to spell.
We'll put it in the show notes.
I am on, Instagram and Facebook, and I post daily mobility. And what'd you say?
Oh, Caleigh's a fidgeter, and she always has to have something in her hands. And so she just dropped it, and it made a sound on my chair. And so she just started laughing because she dropped her fidget top thing, whatever it was. I don't know.
You have like a fidget spinner?
It's like a metal top.
Where did it go?
I've been fidgeting with it. It flew. I don't know where it went.
Rolled off somewhere.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
That is awesome.
I
want to get one.
I have a little, just a smidge of ADHD. And I can't sit still.
I don't know where that just rolled
It's
off to,
gone.
but
We'll
yeah, it was
find
like a little metal like spinner top thing, and she's been over here like twirling it under the
That is
camera.
so awesome. That's so good. I'm that way, except I'll like cross one leg and then I'll cross the other, and then I'm like,
I constantly have to be moving. I can't
sit still.
No, I can't either.
She'll show up to recordings and she'll be like, "Look at all the new fidget."
I
bring
fidgets.
She'll like throw them over the table.
I forgot them
Oh my
tonight,
God.
but I usually I try to like pick out the quiet, because my kids have tons of fidgets, so I try to pick out like the quiet ones. But anyway, sorry.
This one wasn't quiet because it was metal, and then she dropped it on my metal chair, and then it made her laugh. So I apologize for her. She's just along for the ride.
She loves it.
I know. Well, yes, she does.
It's good.
You're funny.
It's good.
I'm glad you're here. But also, it's like really in the moment. I'm like telling people how to find Mandy.
I said I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'll just link it all in the show notes. And so you've got the mobility program out. Is it an app?
Yeah. So
or what is?
It's a 10-minute mobility. So if I'm transparent, I'm totally learning this whole
Awesome.
We love that.
online.
We're learning this
creative
podcast thing as we go. So.
Oh my gosh, it's a whole thing. So I went with Kajabi,
Yeah.
and that is a course that has all the things.
Yeah.
So I had somebody help me create a course, and it's the idea, the essence of it is what I found after I was posting a lot and I was getting comments and feedback, just like you guys, probably with the podcast. Like, you really learn who is drawn to you and what questions do they have.
Yeah.
So I just created it. I felt like a lot of people that were following me were people who were like taking the exercises that I was sharing and they were trying them out and they were doing them. And so 10-minute mobility was born, and it's basically just 10 different workout sessions that are 10 minutes long. So total body stretching, one focusing on shoulders, one focusing on hips. There's one on feet. There's one on core stability. Posture was a big one. Hips and shoulders are really like a hot topic right now. People are just locked up in their shoulders and their hips. And then stability, our core stability, because if we aren't keeping our core stable and we can't really get access to our hip because our back's moving a lot. So it kind of all goes together. So I just wanted to create a well-rounded program that anybody could pick up and implement. I created a 30-day jump start so they have the program and then they can kind of follow through and do daily mobility if they want to weave it into their life. And I felt like 10 minutes was something that maybe people felt like was doable. It wasn't like this whole big scary workout,
Right.
but it was something. And then honestly, I'm like, hey boys, because they always want me to stretch them out at night. And I'm like, can you do this, the 10-minute mobility tonight?
Nice.
I'm going to take the night off.
Yeah, just follow my video.
All day.
I'm going to buy it because I need a lot of help. I know between like my core stability is horrible because I have not done any work on bringing my core back after kids. I mean, I've had 4 pregnancies and I know I have not done near the amount of work that I should be doing. I also know that I'm not moving well in my upper body. Same thing. I roll my shoulders forward too much. I hold my stress in my shoulders. Like, I just know that I am not moving well. So I'm going to buy it because I'm really excited for it. Yeah. Cause I watch your videos and your videos get a ton of views. You have a lot of people watching your stuff. They're super short. They're very informative. They're solving a problem, which is huge. But I would probably be just like some of the people that watched your videos, like doing one exercise here or there. I like that you packaged it together. That you are. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were messaging me like, hey, do you have any place online? I'm like, I will soon. And that was like in November, December. It's like, I will soon, but I didn't know when, and I really didn't know what I was doing. So I'm like, I got to take a minute to figure this out. But I think that is a lot of people. And a lot of people too, when you go online, and what I found was people were just wanting something easy to digest. It might just be one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not giving you a whole bunch of stuff. And that's what I found for me. I was drawn to the accounts where just give me like one nugget today. I'll just take that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what the mobility program is like, where you can just have like one thing. And it's me talking. I'm doing it with you. I'm giving you breathing cues. We're taking it together. And it's just taking everything that I have learned and we'll just do it together. So the videos online, I don't talk. I just say something and put a trending audio to it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, they catch attention though. They're at least enough to be like, they make you stop, you know, cause you have to read it. And then it's like, I watch what you do. And
especially if it's a fast video, you know, when there's a whole bunch of words and you're like, wait, what was that? And then I watched it 10 times.
Right. Yep.
I guess that's good. I don't know.
Yeah. Of course, any view is a good view. It doesn't matter who did it. So there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this is to me, I feel like this is a newer topic that's kind of coming into play. I mean, and you're right. Things from 20 years ago, it's different. We're learning more. Like so much of it back then was either bodybuilding or athletic based. And now we're like, okay, well, there's actually things that we just need to be doing as human beings to move well in our current lifestyle, because life as we know it now is also different than it was 20 years ago, which is different than it was 20 years before that. Right. And so, you know, we've got all the techie things, all the sedentary things. We are evolving, and some of this stuff is kind of coming along with us, which I think is great. We just need to embrace it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, for me, teaching yoga, teaching Pilates, that's great. But that is also just a market of people that feel comfortable doing that, you know, where mobility is like, okay, I'm putting all these things together from the yoga Pilates world and the training world and kind of trying to bring them together in some sort of way that feels doable for a lot of people. Because I feel like more people are kind of drawn to the mobility versus the segments of like, you know, because there's stereotypes around all these different types of training.
There is. Yeah, there's the top rolled all the way over to the other side of the room. And so this is what she's been like twirling and twisting, and it's like a little spinny thing.
But awesome.
I've been trying not to make noise with it. I've been trying to be respectful.
You've been doing really super great.
I don't hear it.
I do love that mobility has an entire new name, even though if it's bringing components in, because I do feel like, say, some men, for example, they don't like to say that they're doing yoga. They definitely would not be caught dead saying that they do Pilates, I think, most of the time. And so and a lot of people, I mean, flexibility has been out there, and most people are just like, well, I'm just not flexible. So I love that it's kind of pulled from so many different areas and created its own name that doesn't have those attachments to the words that some of the other things do. I think people are going to be more open to being like, oh yeah, I want to move well.
I think for me, it feels like a very like micro aspect, but I am more and more, even before we talked about it, I do realize the value.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a niche thing. Like,
no, it's a lifestyle.
Right.
I mean, you want to move well.
Exactly.
People don't want to hurt. They don't want to have their joints. No. They would be achy. They want to move well.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we know now, even with just recovery of injuries, the worst thing you can do is just do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to, when we don't do anything, the body will just lock up. It'll just, especially around an injury. And so, you know, and part of this too is, you know, I've had my fair share of neck pain and back pain and different things. So overcoming my own, you know, a lot of the times people get to where, you know, you're searching for things because they're trying to solve their own problems too, you know? So it's like, yeah, I want to age well. So how can I figure out a way to do this? And then I'll help other people, because I like to geek out about it. So
I love that you created a package around it, because now that'll be easy for me to just be like, okay, I'm just going to go do Mandy's stuff, learn what it helps for me. And then I'm probably going to take some nuggets of that and then incorporate my knowledge and everything that I know and be like, okay, now how can I transition this into helping our local sports teams, our kids? I mean, it doesn't even have to be like sports related. Like mobility is everything, and we should all want to be strong and move well and all the things. So it's like, how can I go impact others too with kind of the same thing? Or some of them I'll probably just send your way and just be like, just download her program, because I'm not going to recreate that one. Just go pay Mandy.
Yeah.
She'll do it for you at home, but like we can work through it then in person or whatever and just kind of, you know, do the things. So I love it.
Yeah. Well, and I figured, you know, I felt like too, if it's something that somebody can just buy one time, there's not a membership, it's just buy the program, help it solve, you know, maybe it solves your problem. Maybe down the road, I do a 2.0 because people are ready for something more, fine, whatever. But I think it's a really good starting point, because really what we need is repetition. You know, even like when I go to the gym, I like to do the same kind of workout for a long time. You know, I don't actually want to change it up like every single week. Like I need a program, and I just want to do that program for quite a while.
And it should be that simple,
I
yeah.
know a lot of people get bored with that, but I need the repetition. Otherwise, I don't get good at whatever that is that I'm doing, and I don't feel like I'm getting stronger. But that's, training programming too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I agree with that. I mean, all too. So, but yes, well, I love this topic. I think it's great. I'm really excited to see what happens from this point going forward as this evolves for you and the kids and all the things. So yeah, we'll put all your information in the show notes.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in finding Mandy, finding her program, connecting with her on social media, she does a great job with her reels, videos, and things like that with her different stretches and things like that. So definitely find her, connect with her, follow all the things, all the social things.
I will.
And then buy her stuff.
You never told me about her before today, so.
I know. Well, because I knew she was coming on as a guest, and I was like, we're going to talk to her about it.
You never tell me about anything, so you didn't share your pelvic ball with me.
Then you can be surprised.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So I'm like, look at all this cool stuff.
It was a wonderful surprise.
Fun people.
I know. Apparently you do.
People doing really cool things. And we get to talk about it.
You're so cool.
I'm not cool. She's cool.
You're cool. Would I be here with you?
You're cool.
You're cool. We're all cool.
I only hang out with cool people. That's one thing you got to know about me.
I have very selective
Don't
friends.
insult me.
So, very good. Well, that's it.
Right.
I mean, that's what we got. Mobility. Check out Mandy's stuff in the show notes, and move well, live well, be well. Is that a thing? Wasn't that nice?
Whoa, we're going to sign off
We are signing off on that one. We'll create a little motto here. So
look at you.
All right. Thanks again, Mandy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mandy.
You're great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Until next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to head over to our Instagram at Nacho Fitness Coach and let us know how you feel about the topic. Do you love it or hate it?
Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening. And if you like our podcast, leave us a rating. See you next time.
You've been listening to Euphony Innovatives Sonified.